our on-site as well as our data licensing partnerships. And we'll get into what that means in a little bit later, I'm sure. But what Niche really does is we're the largest education search platform in the country. We've got robust profiles on K through 12 schools, on colleges, as well as places to live, really all across the US. And we really try to help people find where they belong.
Awesome. Nadim?
Thank you also, Sara, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Nadim Curi. I'm co-founder and CEO at Crimeometer. What we are doing in a nutshell is making crime visible by democratizing access to crime data. So we aggregate and standardize different types of crime data sources, from official crime incidents from police departments, news around the web, everything that is out there in terms of public safety. Basically, it's our show to aggregate and standardize those sources. That the problem we're addressing is that today all this information, public safety information, is scattered, it's fragmented all around, and people and companies don't have an easy way, an easy source, basically, to rely on to get access to this, public safety information, crime data, and at the end, also criminals are taking advantage of this total lack of information.
Ryan, anything else to add? I didn't want to, cut you off. Any more detail to give about those insights before we get started into some of our questions?
No. I think we'll probably cover a lot of that on the questions.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let me give a little bit more background on Local Logic. I think I was a little high level there. So at Local Logic, what we're really doing is using data to quantify everything outside the four walls of every asset in the US and Canada, regardless of what asset class that location or asset might be. And so our insights collectively are used to really tell the story of quality of life and experience of location and the surrounding neighborhood around an asset. So we deliver our insights in a variety of ways, including APIs, our web tools, and our platform. And our location insights really cover a variety of different aspects of the ecosystem of place. So different forms of transportation like walkability, access to rapid transit, as well as services and amenities like schools, restaurants, different forms of retail. And then my personal favorite is getting into things that you might think of as being more subjective, but we're actually using data to quantify it. So we have our vibrancy score, our quiet score, and then we just added our wellness score about a month ago, really giving that whole picture of the experience of a place. I'm really excited about today's conversation because in our day-to-day, we are always being repeatedly asked by our clients for crime rates, more crime statistics, and really being able to dig in on school quality. I think it's just become very clear to me how critical this kind of data is to commercial real estate investment decision-making, particularly as we've been really focusing on single-family rental and multifamily residential. And I think it's just part of a more robust picture of location that, in conjunction with our insights and also some of our other partners like Climate Check and Home Junction, adding niche and Crimeometer data to the whole picture is really important. So let's start off maybe on the commercial real estate side of things. Ryan, why and in what ways should institutional real estate investors and developers consider Niche's school quality data?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when you're thinking about what Niche has to offer, we're really equalizing schools all across the country. So we're able to really compare schools in a standardized way in Pittsburgh to those in Los Angeles or Florida or really anywhere in the country. And you'll know that an A is an A. We also know that we're providing rankings on the national level as well as on the state level, the county level, and even sometimes in the city level. So you're able to see, based off of how large of an investment portfolio you have and how large of a geography you're working with, you're always going to be able to ensure that you're getting the same level of quality of the data, and it's going to match up one-to-one really wherever you're looking. I think the second thing is, we have access to data on private schools as well as charter and magnet. So we're giving you the full look on what is available from an educational opportunity, not just the public schools. And then we also do have district level data, rankings, and grades. So that summarizes the data a little bit more coherently than just looking at all the individual schools themselves. The last thing is we do have additional data on things like teachers, on diversity, on health and safety that really aren't captured via a standardized test or a proficiency score. We really try and give a holistic view on what it's like to live in that area and send your kid to that school. So we're really thinking about it user first. And we've got a ton of data that can help your partners to really understand what it's like being and attending a school in that area.
Yeah, that's really a full picture. And I think for us, what we've seen sort of the use case being with our clients is that they're looking for that kind of school data to also understand like who they're building for, or if they are building, a unit mix that's perhaps larger and will accommodate families, what kind of schools are going to be in that, serving that area. And I wonder also if it's kind of almost a proxy for other things that are going into the assumptions of a pro forma to just understand like the quality of schools in that area, if you've seen any of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's also where the private charter and magnet school element comes into it as well. Because when you're thinking about, how many students are attending public schools in a given area, that isn't the full picture of all the families that live in that area. So that's definitely something that's important, as there are many alternatives in education that are continuing to develop on a year-to-year basis. So I think that's one aspect that's really important to keep in mind.
Awesome. So Nadim, switching over to you, how can Crimeometer's data be used to de-risk commercial real estate investments?
Sure, absolutely. So as you can imagine, crime is a factor that can affect the property's value and property's price. So real estate investors wants to risk their investment as much as possible, and crime is one variable to consider. Basically, what we have seen is that in the real estate space, real estate investors mostly care about the historical crime data, and also the crime trends that are going forward, basically to anticipate and predict how can that property value will be affected over time. So what we provide currently is not only the specific crime incidents that are going on a given area, but also we can provide crime statistics, or also we calculate a crime safety index that provides you a value between 0 and 100, being 50 the national average. So you can also compare that particular location at nationwide level compared with other locations. So if it is above 50, will be a little bit above the national average. Below 50 will be below the national average.
And I think one of the other things we've talked about, Nadim, is the ability to get context similar to what Ryan was talking about. And our location scores work in a similar way, but you could actually query your data and understand the index, for example, for like a mile or 3 miles outside of a certain location, and then just understand sort of, is this sort of the local context of that index?
Yes, exactly. That's that's the challenge. Basically, is when you get the crime data or public safety information in that area, is how do you interpret how do you what that result means, basically. So you need to have something to compare that information to, and the crime safety index is a great way to do that.
Yeah, I thought that it was something I was just thinking about, how you might use all of our insights in conjunction if you were to do sort of like a portfolio analysis and start to see the correlations and trends that start to pop up when you look at the crime index and the school ratings, and then all of our different location scores. I think that sometimes there's this like gut feeling or sense of the types of locations or trending areas that you're looking for, but then to really be able to dig down across all these different factors in such a really specific, granular way it's very data driven, and I think that's where we're all trying to push those decisions to be made. So I think maybe let's switch over, because we're about halfway, and start thinking about home buyers and how they might use this type of data that we're talking about. So we historically have worked with a lot of home search portals at LocalLogic, and they're always trying to endeavor to give a more comprehensive view to those home searchers, buyers, renters, about not only the property, but the neighborhood and the details of that neighborhood. So, we add a lot about sort of the quality of life, the experience. We also have climate risk data with our partner Climate Check, and wellness and walkability, and all these just different pieces of that. But how can crime data be displayed in a way like those are all sort of telling you, quality of life, happy, what's cool to do around the site, but like, how does crime data fit into that story and not scare home buyers off, Nadim?
Sure, yeah, that's a challenge, and we may receive some pushback in some cases from property owners that don't want this crime and public safety information to be known. But at the end, what we have seen with other types of information is that today the power it's in the consumers, and the people and the users. So we have seen huge real estate companies like Trulia or Zillow or others to show crime maps over time around many other types of information and data. And again, it's something that is still a bit controversial, but we are really confident that at the end, users wants to know about this information, along with other types of information, public transit, schools, like everything, walkability. So, and crime is also one thing, of course, that everyone cares about. So, it's for us, it's a matter of time this, and that's our job, to make this information as easily accessible as possible for people when they're looking for a place to rent or live, and that's what they're asking for. So it's our challenge is how we make this as easy as possible for them to understand. And what we have seen so far is, again, going with Trulia or other real estate companies are showing crime risk maps, for instance, that can show different types of risk in a given area. Again, going back to the crime safety index is how we compare this area with the national average. So if we receive between 0 and 100, it is a 50, will be around the national average. Below 50 will be a little bit more like a lighter color, and then above 50 will be a darker color on the map. That's an easy way to understand.
It strikes me that it's kind of similar to when we're providing the climate risk data to our partners like Redfin, for example, and they've decided to just show as much information as possible, because really, I think to your point, like you're empowering that home searcher to make a full decision and really get all of the information possible on risk and opportunity. And whether, it's a home buyer or institutional investor, it's an investment, and knowing all of the risk associated up front is, I think, becoming just more and more table stakes, that you have to be able to provide all of that information up front.
Yeah. And why we are so convinced about this path is that the information is out there, it's publicly available. The problem is that it's, again, scattered, fragmented. The consumer, the user will maybe, it will take a couple of hours to go to a specific location, understand which crime data source they will need to go to. And once a real estate company understand that and put that information as easily as possible into the user's hands, and the user just in 5 minutes can easily understand that location, it will give a huge competitive advantage to the real estate company.
Yeah, sure. It's creating stickiness and also just kind of cementing the role of being a location expert on all aspects of that location. So Ryan, I think let's kind of maybe tying those pieces together. On the school data side, what criteria that you provide do you think is the most important for both consumers and investors to think about? Is it things like rankings or school ratings, or is it the public versus private, which I was really interested to see that you all had? Is it school district lines? What's the most important piece?
Yeah. So I think for both home buyers and investors, both are very personal decisions.
Mm.
No two investors have the same strategy. No two home buyers have the same criteria on what's most important. And I think that's really the beautiful thing that our data engineers have done when they put together our niche rankings and our niche grades, is that the idea is no two people are the same. Everybody is unique. We're not trying to help people find the best school in America. We're trying to help people find the best school for them or the best school for their family. So the really great thing is that we've got a ton of data on a ton of different schools, and we're slicing and dicing that data into these insights. They're telling you not just what are the best academic schools in the country. We have information on what are the most diverse schools in the country. What are the schools that have the best facilities, or what are the schools that are sending the most kids to Ivy League schools, and we have proprietary outcome data that show where each of these schools are sending their kids off to college. So I think it's really the wide variety of data in the work that we've already done to be able to highlight, not just what's the best overall school in your state. We can say, if sports are important to me, I can say, what are the best schools that have the best athletic programs? Because I know that's what's going to keep my child engaged. Or what is the school that has the best teachers? So those are things that we're able to really provide you a deeper level of data on each of these schools, so that you don't have to do that work yourself. Similar to what Nadim said, a lot of the information is available, and some of it is coming directly from niche users. But what we're doing is making that easier for the end user to make their decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I just thinking to how our location scores are used, especially on the commercial real estate side, it's like that investment thesis is not the same, and especially like with single family rental, we see so many different buy boxes out there of like, I wouldn't presume to say, oh, you should be in a walkable area that's super close to restaurants. It might not be, the profile of who you're trying to provide housing for. So that's really interesting that you can really customize like what you're actually looking for. I like how you phrase that. So I think we're running up on time. I want to make sure that we talk about stuff that we're excited about coming up on our roadmaps. And I'll let Nadim, do you want to kick us off on kind of what's to come? What are we looking forward to?
Sure, absolutely. So in terms of our roadmap, we are releasing new products. For instance, recently this week, we released a new product with 911 calls that will give, more like near real-time information it's information that is incomplete because are ongoing 911 calls that the police departments are receiving, but for a different use cases could be also valuable. That's an example. We also, a few months ago, released sex offenders data as well, something that people care about as another data set. And that's an example of how we continue to improve and also how we make all of this information more useful and accessible. That's pretty much it.
And that just reminded me of your data it's updated so frequently. It's really, I just did, if you wanted to kind of speak to that for a moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's the updates, the frequency of updates, it depends on each city, on each police department. What we have seen so far is that most police department updates like every few days or weekly, there are new crime incidents. In some cases could be, like monthly, but the most of them give, updates every few days. So that's also a great news, for us and for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan, what about you guys?
Yeah, so what we're offering today within our data licensing packages is a really robust look at, what's going on in each of these schools. The next product that we're working on developing is what's actually happening on niche. So which schools are getting attention on niche. So niche is, like I said, the largest education search platform in the country. We get about 10 million visits a month. So that is early indication data on what schools are over-indexing in an area as far as activity.
Okay, very cool. And I think on the local logic side, we're really digging in on making our insights actionable for single family rental and multifamily investors. Really that sort of portfolio analysis, ability to find similar sites to past successful investments is what we're really focusing on right now. And I think the next piece of that is we've been around for 6 years and starting to unveil and uncover and make available our historic location insights. So Nadim, you kind of hit the nail on the head earlier of how people want to understand how neighborhoods change over time. And we understand it from all those different location characteristics, from transportation to schools and restaurants and all those different pieces of how a neighborhood changes over time. So that's going to be something that will be coming. And I think last piece here before we get to questions. So if our attendees want to learn more or maybe even meet us in person, what are some opportunities that you all have coming up, or what's the best way to get in touch? Nadim, you look ready?
Sure, yeah. Email, is best for me. I can write down my email address here in the chat window. So please don't hesitate, to reach out, and I am always open for a conversation. So I'm putting that here in the chat window now.
Okay. I think for us, you can always visit locallogic.co, and we're also going to be, we've been headed to a bunch of conferences already this year, but we're going to be going to Blueprint in September and IMN's Build to Rent Forum, both in Las Vegas, that same week in September. So that's our next thing on the docket. And we look forward to seeing people in person and saying hi. Ryan, what about you?
Yeah, the same for me. The best way to get in contact is email, and I can definitely put that in the chat as well.
Okay, great. So Ataya, do we have any questions at all?
Yes, we do have a question. So this question is coming to us from Keith. Are you only comparing crime to a national average, or are more local measures possible? For instance, is it possible to look at crime in one area / neighborhood compared to the county / MSA / state?
Yeah, that's a great question and insight. So thank you, Keith. We currently don't have that feature, but for sure we will keep that in mind. That it makes a total sense, to compare not only national, but at more regional level. So we will definitely get that insight into our roadmap.
Okay. I think Nadim, like that was one of the things I had mentioned before, because that's something that's come up for us to have that kind of relative context of the index. But the way that we had discussed it was maybe it's not the ability to query like a zip code or a geography per se of like a city or something, or a neighborhood, but you can choose your own radius and your own time frame to go back historically. So there's proxies that get you at least close to that for the time being.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, well, we're almost at time. Ty, are there any other questions?
Yes, one last question. Okay. Does the crime score impact the walkability score?
Yeah, that's also a great question.
That's a great question.
If you want to go ahead, Sarah. From our side, I think that should currently, and I'm not sure if it is how it is implemented that way, but from our side, I personally think it should totally.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because obviously, like, we're two separate companies, and our algorithm for our walkability score does take into account things that get around that, but not directly crime data, which is really an interesting idea. And we should definitely share that with our product team. But our walkability score is really a great example sort of of Local Logic's urban planning roots, where we're looking at the pleasantness of the walk based on the actual urban design and context of the streetscape. And are you walking by, old industrial buildings, under train overpasses? Are you walking on a cute tree-lined street with retail that has sidewalks? So a lot about sort of the experience that might be a way of telling a part of that story, which I think is interesting. And the other piece of it, I think, is, we talked about it in terms of like real estate values, but there's so much more that crime could impact and walkability could impact about marketing an asset, or even thinking about like the security needs or OpEx that's going to be involved if you choose a certain location. So there's certainly a lot of crisscross and sort of interrelatedness that's happening with our data sets. All right, well, we are at time, and I just want to say thank you so much to Ryan and Nadim for joining us today for our webinar. This has been awesome. We're so excited to partner with you both, and just send us any questions you all have, and we're going to get you a recording of the webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Likewise, thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah.
All right, thanks. Bye.